Today I have another edition of 4K Takeaways for you, and I'll be discussing recent 4K releases of The Terminator, Signs, and The Sixth Sense. So let's rock this. Hi everyone, how you doing? Welcome back. I'm Fuzz, and today I've got another installment of 4K Takeaways for you guys. This is, of course, a series where I offer my version of a 4K review, my take on recent 4K releases that have captured my interest, usually older catalog titles, but occasionally I'll throw a newer film in the mix as well. And today I've got three movies I want to talk about. Of course, the big one being The Terminator. There was no way I was not going to do a 4K review on this. This is, of course, one of my all-time favorite movies. For those who've been watching the channel for a while, you guys already know that, I'm sure. Yeah, this was very exciting that we finally received this on 4K. But I'm also going to be discussing a couple M. Night Shyamalan releases. We've got Signs here, and then also The Sixth Sense on 4K as well. And as you can see here, apparently with this one, The Sixth Sense, I missed out on the slipcover. So I was a little late picking it up, and I guess that's what happens when you don't pre-order. So more on that here in a little bit. But for now, let's just get right into these takeaways. All right, so let's kick things off here with the big one, The Terminator, greatly anticipated 4K release among many of us in the collecting community. I was so excited to finally have this one on 4K. I definitely think it was long overdue. You know, when I think of my love of movies, the passion that I have for movies, I think that love of film can be traced back to maybe just a couple pivotal events in my life. And seeing The Terminator in the theater with my dad in 1984 is definitely one of those moments for me. In fact, that may have been the single most impactful event of my life in terms of really getting me into movies and becoming a huge fan of movies. It was just an amazing experience at the time, and one that I really treasure. You know, I have very fond memories of it. I've talked about it previously on the channel. For those of you who've been watching the channel for a while, you know that I really hold that experience pretty close to my heart. So yeah, it was awesome to finally see this get a 4K release, and there was no way I was not gonna be all over this on day one. And of course, not only that, I got both the slipcovered edition and the steelbook, which is something I almost never do. You know, I'm not someone who usually double dips for the same release on the same format, you know, on release day. That almost never happens. In fact, I think this may have been the first time I've ever done that, where I actually picked up both a steelbook and a slipcovered edition of the same movie on the same format on release day. But it's a big movie to me. It's an important film. And I mean, it's one of my all-time favorite films. In fact, it's the other all-time favorite film. That's what I usually like to say. Usually I talk about Aliens being my all-time favorite film, and it is, but this one is number two, and it's very, very close, right? This one is almost right up there with Aliens for me. In fact, some days this is my favorite film of all time, so it just depends on my mood. But yeah, this and Aliens are pretty equal for me in terms of how much I love these films and how close they are in terms of being my all-time favorites. You know, when I saw this in the theater when it first came out, I was just totally blown away by this movie. It was so creative and so original, at least to my young mind at the time. I think I was about 13 years old. And yeah, I'd never seen anything quite like that. It just blew me away. You know, the story seemed fresh and, like I said, very original. And it was not a story that I'd really been exposed to before. And so the whole time travel component and all that was just like, I loved it. I just absolutely loved it. I was so engaged. I remember just being like super into it while I was watching it in the theater. I have very vivid memories of watching this in the theater, and it was just an amazing experience. And of course, getting to share that experience with my dad. You know, he was always a big fan of sci-fi as well, so we always kind of bonded on that quite a bit. You know, he would take me to movies quite a bit when I was younger, and there were a lot of great movies I got to see in the theater with my dad, and those are all great memories that I really treasure. So, but this was the big one. When I think of seeing movies in the theater, this is like the single most impactful theatrical experience I think I ever had. So yeah, I just love this film. All right, so let's talk about the image quality, the image presentation, and audio here. Apparently, there was an existing 4K scan of the original camera negatives, the source elements, that was done back in like 2012 or 2013, and that 4K scan was used as the basis for subsequent Blu-ray releases. And a shout out to Bill Hunt over at the Digital Bits for that little bit of info. But apparently what they did was they used that existing 4K scan as the basis for this 4K, with James Cameron going in and supervising the digital remastering of that existing 4K scan to get it ready for this release. You get both Dolby Vision and HDR10 here, and the encode is housed on a triple layer BD100 disc. You only get a 4K disc here and a digital code. It does not include a Blu-ray disc. Everything is on the 4K disc, so it's just a single disc in this release. The aspect ratio is that nice screen filling 1.85 to 1. And then for audio, you get both Dolby Atmos, and then you also do get the original theatrical 2.0 mono audio as well. And that's great. I know a lot of people really wanted that mono track, and they do include it here. Now, just a quick note about the audio before I talk more about the picture quality. The Dolby Atmos track sounds really good. It seems like they cleaned up the audio quite a bit from what we got on the previous Blu-ray, which is what I have. Yeah, the Dolby Atmos track, I was really happy with it. Even though I don't have a Dolby Atmos system. I don't have an Atmos setup. I just have a 5.1 traditional 5.1 surround sound setup. But I can still hear the differences in different mixes. You know, if I'm given a disc that has both a 5.1 mix and a Dolby Atmos mix, I can hear the difference between those two mixes, and the Dolby Atmos mixes always sound better, or at least almost always, as far as I'm aware. So I was really happy with what they did with the audio here, and I definitely noticed an improvement over the previous audio options. And then I flipped over to the mono track briefly just to check it out, and it sounded good. It sounded fine. But I know for those of you who are fans of the original theatrical mono, I think you'll be happy to know that that's definitely included here as well, and it sounds good as well, at least what little I heard of it. I spent most of the movie listening to the Dolby Atmos track because it just sounded so much better to my ears. But yeah, the mono audio is there for you if you want it. Now, as far as the restoration and picture quality go, quite simply, this looks absolutely incredible. It is a fantastic looking 4K. This is a damn near reference quality 4K release. I would say that. Some people might even consider this a reference disc. I'd say it's pretty damn close, if not a reference quality release. For this release, Cameron used the same deep learning technology that's been used on the other Cameron 4K releases, but it does seem like they've kind of perfected the process over time. True Lies was not as good looking as, say, The Abyss, for example, right? I mean, The Abyss looked absolutely incredible on 4K. It was the best of the bunch for me. And I would say this is on par with The Abyss. It's pretty damn close. Some people might even consider this one to be a better restoration than The Abyss. Yeah, some of you might like this one even more. I think it's tough to tell. I think they're pretty damn close, right? Yeah, this just looks absolutely incredible. There's even film grain. You actually still have film grain here, which I know was one of the big complaints with previous Cameron releases, was the grain reduction. Yeah, that isn't really as much of an issue here. You definitely can see the film grain, and this very much has that filmic, cinematic look to it that you would expect to see with this particular film. You get this amazing presence and vibrancy to the image that is absolutely a pure treat to watch. The detail is exquisite, if not downright off the charts. Things like skin and hair, facial features, clothing and costumes, all beam with this crisp and vivid detail, as do various surfaces in the film, whether we're talking about like asphalt on the streets or a brick wall, or the surface of vehicles or machinery. The detail is just amazing in this, and it all looks just incredible. And this is especially true of the film's practical effects. Courtesy of the great Stan Winston, the practical effects look amazing. You can see so much more detail in them than you ever could before. The models and the miniatures and the sets from like the future scenes, the scenes that take place in the future, those all look just better than we've ever seen them before. I mean, to be honest, you could make the case that the clarity is almost a little too good, that you can almost see a little too much in the practical effects, given the limited budget that Cameron had to work with, and the early, more primitive and experimental nature of Stan Winston's work at the time. I mean, you can see pretty much every nook and cranny of all of the practical effects, as well as just the textures of the film in general, right? That's one thing this 4K really excels at, is the textures in the film just look incredible. So much richness to them, so much detail, and so much depth and pop. That, yeah, you just can't go wrong with this 4K release. And the colors are incredible as well. As you would expect on 4K, the colors always have a little bit more vibrancy to them, and that is certainly the case here with this 4K release. The HDR really does help, and the wider color gamut, of course. The HDR also really does help with the darker nighttime scenes, right? You get more detail in some of those darker scenes. So, but yeah, overall, this thing just looks absolutely amazing, and it's definitely going to be a contender for 4K of the year for me. I mean, this is easily the best this has ever looked on home media, and I can say that with absolute confidence. If you're a fan of this movie, I would like to think that just about anybody who's a fan of this movie is going to appreciate this 4K. But I know some people nitpick the Cameron releases, so I can't say that with total confidence. But yeah, this just looks absolutely amazing. If by some chance you didn't like the way the other Cameron 4K releases came out, there's a good chance you might actually like this one. Because you do still have some film grain in there. It looks a little bit different than the other 4K releases. It looks like they took a more, I don't know, a little bit more grounded approach with this particular restoration, or maybe they just refined the whole restorative and enhancing process, but it really does look incredible. Like I said, I think this is probably on par with The Abyss, and The Abyss was my favorite of the James Cameron 4K releases in terms of picture quality. Yeah. This is absolutely incredible, and I'm going to say it's a must-own for any fan of this film, just based on the restoration alone. All right, let's move on to special features here. That's the only thing about this release that was a little bit of a disappointment, is there isn't really anything new here in terms of special features. There are a few archival featurettes that are anywhere from like 10 to 12 minutes long, but that's about it, and those appeared previously on previous releases. So, I was kind of hoping they would do a more, I don't know, I was kind of hoping they'd provide something new like they did with The Abyss. And I think they, even with the Aliens, they did like a new like little featurette that was, I don't remember what it was, maybe 20, 30 minutes. I would have liked it more if they had done something new, gotten Linda Hamilton and Arnold and James Cameron back together, do some, current interviews reflecting back on the Terminator franchise. I would have loved to have seen something like that. But instead, all we got was just some archival stuff that we've seen before, right? That was on the previous Blu-rays and DVDs, I think, too. So, yeah. So I was kind of disappointed in the special features. There's nothing really new here to write home about. I mean, the ones that are there are worth watching if you've never seen them before. They're kind of interesting, and they're like standard definition that have been like upscaled. So they're a little bit older. And yeah, just generally speaking, I wasn't all that excited about the special features on this release. I was hoping we'd get something new to sink our teeth into, but it was not to be. All right, let's move on to packaging here, and I've got a couple releases to share with you. Like I said, this is one of the only times I've ever done this where I actually picked up both the Steelbook and the slipcovered edition on release day. I just had to do it for this film because it's so special to me, right? But let's talk about the slipcover first. I actually think the slipcover looks pretty good. It's a pretty decent looking slipcover. You know, nothing too special, right? But your standard, you know, slipcover that you would expect from SDS, right? This is was put out by Studio Distribution Services. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy with that slipcover. And I actually like the art on it too. I thought the art was pretty cool. But let's look at the Steelbook, which is also cool. But admittedly, it wasn't quite as cool as I was hoping it would be. And what I mean by that is I kind of thought there would be a little bit more pop to the colors here, right? It's got more of kind of a matte finish to it. I mean, it's metallic, right? It's got a metallic look to it, but it's kind of a matte finish. It's, I don't know, I guess I was expecting the imagery to have more pop to it and more color to it. I was expecting the colors to be a little bit more striking, I guess, in hand. And it wasn't quite as striking as I was expecting, but I still think it looks cool. I still think it's a cool looking Steelbook. It was just a little bit more muted looking than I thought it would be. Like when you have it in hand, it feels a little bit more muted looking than I thought it would be. I'll show you the other side one more time. I do like that. And then let's show you the inside, because the inside actually is pretty cool. I like the inside of the Steelbook here. Check that out. That is some awesome artwork. I'm loving that. How cool is that? That actually might be my favorite thing about the Steelbook. I think I like the inside art more than the exterior art. But you know, I had to do it. Had to do it. Had to get both a Steelbook and a slipcover for one of my all-time favorite movies, right? So I'm happy with the packaging overall. I'm glad I picked up both. You know, I would have done the same thing for Aliens if Aliens had released if they had released a Steelbook for Aliens. But they didn't do that. They only released a slipcover edition for Aliens. So that's probably the only other film that I would do this for. You know, well, there's maybe a couple others as well. But yeah, so I had the opportunity to pick up both editions, so I just did it. I just had to do it. And yeah, I'm really glad I got them. So yeah, the packaging, I think it's all right for Terminator. Oh, and I will say, I actually think I like the art on this more than the Steelbook, which is kind of strange, you know, but I do. I think I prefer the slipcover art if I'm comparing the two, although I did like the interior of this one that I just showed you. So yeah, so that's the packaging. All right, so for my fuzz score, I'm going to give this a solid 9 out of 10. And the reason I'm giving it such a high score is purely for the restoration. It's all because of the restoration. I think the restoration looks amazing. I think this is an incredible looking release, and it's one I would definitely recommend. If you're a fan of this film, you got to get this on 4K. It is just fantastic. So yeah, 9 out of 10 sounds about right to me. By the way, if you're enjoying the content on this channel, do me a favor and please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you do, don't forget to activate those notifications as well so you can be alerted whenever I'm posting videos that you might dig. Also, don't forget to like the video. It really does help with the algorithm and the channel's visibility on YouTube. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. All right, let's move on to the M. Night Shyamalan films now, starting with Signs. From 2002, great film starring Mel Gibson, Joaquin Phoenix, Rory Culkin, who is Macaulay Culkin's brother, and Abigail Breslin as well. Yeah, this is one I've always liked, and I think this is probably my favorite M. Night Shyamalan film. I'm trying to think if there's another one I like more. I think this is it. I think this might be my favorite. I just always really enjoyed this film. This is about an alien presence on Earth and about a family in rural Bucks County, Pennsylvania, who encounter this presence and have to deal with it. And it's a lot of fun. I love this movie, and it's one that I definitely recommend if you haven't seen it and you like aliens and that kind of stuff, crop circles and that kind of thing, then yeah, this is one you might want to check out because it's a pretty entertaining ride. And prior to seeing this 4K, I don't think I had seen this film for probably maybe 10 or 15 years. It had been some time since I'd seen it. I didn't own it on Blu-ray, right? So this is my first time ever owning it. And yeah, I had a lot of fun returning to this film, revisiting this film. Just an entertaining ride all the way around. All right, so let's move on to the image presentation and audio quality. This was apparently sourced from a 4K scan of the original camera negative. It is HDR10 only. There is no Dolby Vision here. The aspect ratio is 1.85 to 1, so you get that nice screen-filling aspect ratio again. And the encode is housed on a dual-layer BD66 disc, so no triple-layer discs here. You get a dual-layer disc for this one. The audio is just a 5.1 DTS HD Master Audio. No Dolby Atmos here, just the 5.1 surround mix. Well, I'll tell you, I thought this looked amazing. I think the image looks awesome. The details are sharp and crisp. Close-ups are particularly good in this movie. I mean, that's one thing I like about M. Night. The way he does things with close-ups, right? He does these really trippy close-ups where he gets like right in your face, you know? And I love it. I absolutely love it when he does stuff like that, you know, and you can see like every bit of detail in these close-ups. So yeah, trippy close-ups, which seem to be, you know, one of M. Night's signature techniques in his filmmaking. He does use close-ups quite effectively and quite often. Also, the natural locations in this film, the landscapes and the environmental shots like the cornfields and whatnot, that all lends itself really well to 4K. Those outdoor shots just look amazing on 4K. The colors in the film are really rich and vivid, despite having the film having a somewhat muted color palette. And the textures in the film have more depth to them than we've probably ever seen before. Again, I've never owned this on Blu-ray, so I can't comment too much on like how much of an upgrade this is compared to Blu-ray. But I can tell you this is a damn good looking 4K disc. And I have to assume, as I usually do with most 4K releases, that this is the best this film has ever looked on home media, possibly the best this film has ever looked, period, you know, since it ran in the theater. Yeah, I was really happy with the way this 4K turned out. It's an excellent looking disc. I don't know if I'd go reference quality, but you know, it's pretty damn near. I mean, you can definitely demo this out, and I think it would impress people. You know, if you were to demo this film out on your system, I think people would find it impressive. I don't know if I'd go quite reference quality, but it is definitely something that is a sight to behold. Just a stunning looking image. This does have a very cinematic look to it. There is a light layer of film grain that's visible throughout the movie. So it definitely gives the film that warmth that we like to see, and you know, that filmic look. Now, granted, I hadn't seen this film in a long time, but watching this 4K, I gotta say, the film definitely had a depth and presence to it that I've never seen before with this movie. And, you know, that's certainly a testament to how strong of a 4K this is. Moving on to special features here. I was pretty happy with the special features that are included in this. There is a killer I think it's about an hour-long, 6-part documentary that covers almost every aspect of the film, kind of a making of / retrospective documentary. And I love that kind of stuff. Anytime you give me a substantive, feature length, or even something that's not quite feature length but still rather lengthy, like an hour, anytime you give me that kind of documentary, I'm all in on that kind of stuff. Yeah, I was really happy that was included in here. And I haven't had a chance to watch the whole thing, but I started watching some of it, and I was skimming through some different parts and checking it out, and I was like, yeah, this is very cool. Just a great little documentary that's included with this release. Now, granted, this is an archival documentary, so you know, if you have the old Blu-ray or whatever, chances are you've already seen it. But I had never seen it, so I was happy about that. And the documentary is in 4:3 aspect ratio, but it does appear to be in HD. So 4:3 aspect ratio, but you still get high definition. And yeah, I was really happy that they included this documentary in with the special features, because I'm just always a sucker for any kind of making of or retrospective documentary. So when that stuff is included with the release, I do tend to get pretty excited about it. There's a couple other special features on here as well, but really the documentary is the only thing I cared about. There's some storyboards, and then you do get like M. Night's first like alien creature flick. It's like a 1 minute video he shot when he was really young. And so that was kind of an interesting little curiosity. But the 6-part documentary, archival documentary, that's where the special features really shine here. And then for packaging, just a straightforward slipcover here. Nothing too amazing, although I think it's a decent looking slip. It looks nice, so no complaints there. But yeah, it's just your basic slipcover. You know, nothing like incredible to write home about or anything. But I'm glad I got it. You know, I pre-ordered it, so got it on day one, which I think more or less guaranteed I got the slipcover, unlike The Sixth Sense. So, and I'll address that here in just a second. But yeah, decent enough slipcover. Packaging's pretty minimal and doesn't really factor into the score too much here. For my fuzz score, I'm going to give this a solid 8 out of 10, which I consider 8 to be a pretty high score. This is a damn good looking 4K, and one I would definitely recommend picking up if you are a fan of this film. You know, and I love that the special features included a fairly substantive making of retrospective documentary. So between that and the killer restoration, 8 out of 10 sounded about right to me. So that's what we'll go with for Signs. All right, and for my last film here, we have another M. Night Shyamalan film here, The Sixth Sense, from 1999, starring Bruce Willis and Toni Collette and Haley Joel Osment. Great cast, great film. As you can see, I missed out on getting a slipcover for this one. I did not pre-order this one. I held off on ordering this one, waited until a few weeks after it was released to order it. And I guess the slipcovers had sold out by then, or at least are low enough in stock to where they started, you know, sending out these standard editions. So yeah, I mean, I was slightly bummed by that, but it wasn't that big of a deal. Initially, I wasn't even going to pick this up this soon anyway. I was just going to get Signs, and I figured I'd get Sixth Sense later on down the line. You know, Sixth Sense is, I've always liked the movie, but and I haven't seen it in probably at least 20 years, maybe longer. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen it. And I've always liked the film, but you know, my thinking at the time was I wasn't sure about the film's rewatchability, because once you know the ending, it kind of changes the whole film for you a little bit, doesn't it? So, and it's a great ending, but it does change your perception of the film a little bit once you've seen it. So I wasn't really sure how badly I needed this in my collection. You know, it was something I definitely wanted to get in the collection, but in terms of getting it right away, it wasn't like a pressing matter for me personally. Even though I like the film, it's just I wasn't sure how many times I'd rewatch this. So I figured I'd eventually get around to picking it up when it went on sale or something. So I kind of wasn't really expecting a slipcover. Initially, I was expecting that by the time I got around to buying this, there probably wouldn't be many slipcovers editions available. So, you know, that's just the way it goes. I ended up buying it closer to the release date than I thought I was going to, because I decided I wanted to do this review. But either way, here we are, and yeah, not the biggest deal. I don't care that it doesn't have a slipcover for this particular title. You know, for something else, for a James Cameron movie, got to have the slipcover. But for this one, The Sixth Sense, slipcover wasn't critical for me personally. Anyway, I did have a lot of fun returning to this film. I enjoyed revisiting it more than I thought I would. It is just such a gorgeous looking film. So yeah, I'm really glad I picked this up and added it to my collection. All right, let's talk about the image presentation here. Like with Signs, this was also apparently sourced from a 4K scan of the original camera negative, and it's HDR10 only, no Dolby Vision. Once again, you also have an aspect ratio of 1.85 to 1, and this title is also housed on a dual-layer BD66 disc. You do get both a 4K disc and a Blu-ray disc in this, and the same applies to Signs as well. I forgot to mention that with Signs. You do get a Blu-ray disc as well, not just the 4K. And of course, you get digital codes for both this and Signs as well. And then for the audio, it's just like with Signs, it's 5.1 DTS HD Master Audio. As far as image quality is concerned, this one looks even better than Signs. I mean, this looks so good. The image looks crystal clear, very sharp, just outstanding. An amazing level of fine detail in facial features, like I said with the other releases. Facial features, skin complexion, hairs, clothing, fabric. Especially during the close-ups, which M. Night, like I said, he's real big on using close-ups, and he's very effective in how he uses his close-ups, and those close-ups just absolutely shine on 4K. I mean, you can see everything, and the myriad of textures present in various aspects of the sets and locations throughout the film just have so much depth and vitality to them, so much pop to them. The colors look incredible in this, especially the reds. The reds are awesome in this, but yeah, the colors they really pop like you would expect them to. And while the film does have more of a kind of a natural color palette, more of a muted color palette, the colors are still very rich and vivid. And yeah, you get that classic HDR WCG pop on 4K that you just can't go wrong with. So yeah, this looks amazing on 4K. Just a very rich, cinematic looking image. Again, you get grain. You get a nice layer of grain. So it has that filmic look, that filmic warmth to it. Yeah, I was really impressed with this. I was really impressed with this. And I thought Signs looked good, and it does. But this one, I think, edged out Signs in terms of looking a little bit better. It's just a beautiful looking film, a gorgeous film. And yeah, I was really happy with this 4K. It just really feels like this 4K almost breathes new life into the film, right? And I have to assume it's easily the best this film has ever looked. Another one I never owned before. I don't own the Blu-ray for this, so I can't compare it to the Blu-ray, but I have to assume this is the best it's ever looked on home media, because this really was a stunning image. So yeah, happy with the Sixth Sense on 4K for sure. All right, let's move on to the special features here. Like with Signs, they really gave us some good archival special features here. There is an awesome set of making of documentary featurettes. It's like a set of featurettes. I think there's 6 of them, 6 or 7. And if you watch them all together, it amounts to about 110 minutes of footage covering, almost every aspect of the film. It's very substantive documentaries, exploring all kinds of underlying themes in the film. This film is it's a good film. It's like a think piece, right? There's a lot of subtext and there's a lot to kind of mull over when you're watching this film. It's a pretty thoughtful film, and the special features that are included in that in this mirror that thoughtfulness. You can see just how thoughtful of a film this actually is, or thought-provoking, right? When you watch these special features, they really dive into different aspects of the film and the psychology and whatnot. So I was really happy that they included those special features. Again, like with Signs, I had never owned it on Blu-ray, so I had never seen these special features before. So I'm glad they included them on the 4K disc. As far as the packaging is concerned, not a whole lot to say there. There is a slipcover out there that exists for this one, but apparently I missed out on it because I didn't pre-order this. Lesson learned. I'm beginning to wonder about Sony slipcovers, and maybe some of you out there can comment below if you have any additional insider perspective on this. But I'm wondering if maybe Sony is a little bit stingier with their slipcovers, meaning maybe their slipcovers are a little bit more limited. I don't know. I just get the impression that maybe they don't produce as many slipcovers in their initial runs as maybe other studios or labels do. Have you guys noticed that at all? Or have you gotten that impression at all? If so, I'd like to hear from you and hear your thoughts on this because honestly, I only waited, 2 or 3 weeks after this was released, and I thought for sure I was still going to get a slipcover because usually you can, usually like I bought Prey just within the last couple months, right? This came out almost a year ago? Or maybe over a year ago now at this point, and I still got a slipcover. I couldn't believe it. I was expecting to not get a slipcover when I bought this, and this was like a Disney release, right? This was before Disney had Sony start taking over all of their physical media production. Well, now Sony's doing the Disney-owned titles, right? They're producing all the physical media, so I don't know if they produce as many slipcovers as Disney would, or as some other label or studio would. But I'm getting the impression that they are a little bit more limited. I noticed that with Run Lola Run too. That's a Sony release. The standard edition 4K came with no slipcover. The only way you could get the slipcover for that one is if you bought the, I think it was the Sony Classics box set, and then Run Lola Run is in there and it has a slipcover. So I just get the impression that maybe Sony slipcovers are even more limited than your average slipcover. And if you guys notice that as well, like I said, let me know down below. But it's not that big of a deal with this particular movie. If I had really wanted a slipcover, I would have pre-ordered it and made sure I secured one. And that's just a lesson learned, at least with Sony, right? That if you want the slipcover, you should probably pre-order it and make sure you get it on day one if you want to guarantee that you get a slipcover. Otherwise, there's a good chance that all the slipcovers could be gone within a few weeks. So, keep that in mind for future reference. All right, so let's move on to my fuzz score here. I am going to give this one an 8.5 out of 10. Give it a slightly better score than I gave Signs because I do think the restoration looks even better than Signs. Both this and Signs look amazing. They both are great looking 4Ks that if you're an M. Night fan and you were contemplating about whether or not to get these movies, I can definitely recommend them. They all look really good, or both look really good. And then like with Signs, I was also really happy about the special features they included. Even though they're archival, I had never seen them. So, 110 minutes worth of retrospective and making of documentary type stuff. Yeah, I'm all in on that kind of stuff. So 8.5 seems about right relative to Signs. Yeah, and that's a great score. This is one I would definitely recommend if you're a fan of the film. So, The Sixth Sense on 4K. Okay, so that about wraps it up for my latest edition of 4K Takeaways. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Have you picked up these titles yet? And if so, what did you think of them? Do you agree with my assessment here, or do you have a different viewpoint on some of these releases? I always love hearing from you guys and chatting with you guys and interacting with you guys, so make sure you leave me some feedback down below. Also, don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Thank you so much for watching today, guys. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you soon.